Well, hello, YouTube submachine gun fans. Today we have a very special and rare opportunity to unbox a new in box S.W.D M-11 9mm submachine gun. Now, the reason I'm able to do this in 2022 is because in the early 2000s, when I decided I really wanted a machine gun, and like everybody else, I wanted an M16. An M16 was really expensive. Of course, they still are, only more so. But that would have been really at what I felt was the limit of what I could afford to buy. So instead, what I did was I decided to buy a small number of M11-9 and Uzi submachine guns. That way, if I ever had to sell one or two, I'd still have a machine gun. Whereas if I had to sell the M16, I'd have nothing except a lot more money than what I bought it for. So here's the operating manual for the M11-9. We'll just thumb through it quickly, get an idea of what's in it. We have the Cobray logo there. That Cobray logo is actually intended to be a combination of a cobra snake and a moray eel. So the name Cobray is a combination of cobra and moray for Cobray. So we have some nice information here in this booklet on how to operate the M11-9, including the infamous Zytel magazine. So that's pretty cool. They all came in these brown cardboard boxes, as far as I know, the M11-9s. And they all came with these white styrofoam inserts that, after sitting for so many years, slowly absorbing the oils or whatever from the gun, are kind of discolored with oil or lubricant. But they all came like this. And here's one of the infamous Zytel magazines. Zytel is actually just nylon, and the feed lips are actually nylon. So the big criticism about these magazines is that after several hundred rounds, the feed lips will wear out and it will no longer feed the gun reliably. So the only solution is to get another magazine, or in more recent times, you could get some steel feed lips, and I'll show you what those look like. So here is a magazine that has been modified with the steel feed lips epoxied in place. With steel feed lips, I have no problem with these Zytel magazines. They work fine for me. I do not hate these. Some people really hate these magazines and will only use Shockwave Z-Mags, which are also very good, and I also own those. Here's a cleaning rod. For back in the day, you could run some cleaning patches through the bore. I use bore snakes, which were probably not available back in the 80s. So here we have a magazine loading tool. And on the front of it, if we can make it out, there's the Cobray logo on the front of the loader. And tucked in here, we have this nylon strap, which fastens onto the front end of the gun near the muzzle. And it's intended to serve the purpose of a vertical grip. It's intended to serve that purpose. In reality, it's only partly successful in that role, but I guess it's better than nothing. And then finally, here we have the actual submachine gun. So even I have to admit that this looks pretty darn cool. It's small, compact, full auto, and pretty sinister looking. So it is a pretty neat looking gun, I think. But in reality, it has a very high rate of fire, which makes it nearly uncontrollable for anything but a very short burst. So a couple of things that help that. Actually, this retractable shoulder stock that actually helps quite a bit in terms of the controllability, but even so, it's kind of marginally controllable, and it doesn't help that it has really awful sights. There you can see the front sight there. It's pretty crude. The rear sight isn't really any better. So those sights are really only good if your target is very close, but if it's that close, you're just as well off just to point in the general direction and hope you hit your target. So we'll take a look at some of the features of this gun. Starting from the front end, there's the threaded barrel for the suppressors that they often sold with these. And here's the holder for that forward strap, the nylon strap, so that you could actually hold it kind of like that to help control it. Still difficult to be very accurate with this gun. Here is the charging handle. Looks like a hockey puck. Of course, this is an open bolt gun, so when it's cocked, the bolt is open. And here is the selector switch. Right now it is on semi, and you swing it around, and there it's on SMG, submachine gun, or full auto. And let's see, what else do we have? On this side, we have the safety switch. It's a little slide switch. Right now it's on fire. Slide it back, it's on safe. It's not a super great safety. Better to replace it with the superior Lage safety. But this is how the gun came. So let's see if we can take it down so you can see how that goes. Now, originally I think all of these came with a two-piece takedown pin, which requires some kind of a tool like a punch to push down that inner part of the pin. And I'll have to grab a tool so that I can do that. Okay, so we'll push that. Okay, so once we remove the inner part of the takedown pin, we can remove the outer part of the takedown pin, and then we'll be able to remove the upper receiver simply by pulling it up and forward. This is a pretty tight fit. If I shot it, it would probably come out a lot easier, but it's pretty tight right now. So there's the lower with the stock, and this is the upper receiver right here with the hockey puck charging handle. If we slide it back to the rear, we can pull that off and then remove the bolt assembly from the gun. Now this gun is 36 years old. It was made in 1986, so the rubber buffer that originally came with it is cracked and broken and useless. And so if you were to buy an M-11-9, first thing you'd want to do is make sure you've got a good buffer. These original bolts, they had a removable firing pin. Take out that pin, and then the firing pin slides out. So that's the firing pin. Pretty simple. There is a extractor there with a spring, but otherwise it's pretty simple. So let's put the firing pin back in. Okay, so I've put the firing pin back in, and I can slide the bolt assembly back in, install the charging handle, slide it forward, and that's back in place. So there you go. Now on the lower, we can see the fire control assembly. The sears right there. There's a disconnector there for semi-auto. But overall, pretty simple. So it's very fortunate for us today that they made this with an upper and lower receiver, because today we can buy a much better upper receiver to install in it. So it's kind of modular like the M16 in that regard, although I don't think they intended it to be particularly modular in that same way. Okay, so there we have it. It's back together. That's how you take it down and put it back together. And let me see, what else do I want to say about it? So if you do happen to buy one of these M-11 9mm, there are some changes you probably want to make to it. First and foremost, you need to make sure you have a good rubber buffer there in the back. I would also highly recommend changing out the original safety for the Lage version, as well as the Lage version of the sear, and a Lage trigger is much better. So just for illustrative purposes, this is an original Lage Max 11, a much more usable upper and lower combination, very competitive with the Uzi, but a lot less expensive. But if you take a close look here, first thing you might notice is that Lage provides a grip cover that is much better than the original grip on the M11-9. Similarly, this slide switch for the safety has been now replaced with a much more usable and secure slide, a lot easier to reach. Also, the inside component of that Lage safety is new and improved. We do have a Lage trigger, which is quite a bit better than the original. And inside there is also a Lage sear, which is more durable than the original. So with the M11-9, there are some really good upper receivers available, which dramatically transform this lowly submachine gun, which I do have to admit looks pretty cool, pretty sinister, and is very compact. So one more thing I wanted to point out on this gun is the actual model number and manufacturer. So this is actually an M11 9mm. To distinguish it from the earlier M11, which was a .380 caliber gun. And although Cobray is kind of a trademark sort of for these type of MAC weapons, The actual manufacturer of this gun is not Cobray. It is S.W.D. Incorporated, or was S.W.D. Incorporated. So, just wanted to point that out, and that's it. That is the S.W.D. M-11 9mm submachine gun. It took a few years for the Lage uppers to come out, and for this gun to reach the usability of like an Uzi, or more recently you have the Max 1115, which is in some ways comparable to the M16. So I'm really glad that I actually got these guns rather than a single M16. I can recommend this as a very good entry-level gun into the NFA full auto world, even though they are unfortunately more expensive. Well, this can go back in the bank safe deposit box where I keep it with my other registered lowers until I decide to sell it or something. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was something of a good cultural experience. It's too bad that these are so expensive and hard to come by. But thanks for watching this video, and we'll talk to you again in some future video. Bye-bye.